Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. FPL Consult here. Now for the whole of pre-season, we have been discussing three main variations of drafts. The Salah only draft, the Haaland only draft, and the Salah plus Haaland draft. So now that we are nearing the start of game week 1, I thought I'd share with you guys my best draft for each of these variations, so that depending on which one you are going for, you can kind of take reference from there, and hopefully it is helpful for you. So if you do enjoy this video, please drop a like and also subscribe as well if you are new around here. Towards the end of the video, I will be dropping these three teams into the Fantasy Football Hub My Team Tool, and recently they launched a new feature where you can just upload a screenshot of your team into the app and it would load your 15 players already. You don't have to pick them one by one, and they give you an AI rating as well. So if you are interested in that, that will be at the end of the video. So let's jump into this first draft that I have here for you guys today. And it is the Salah only draft, which is a very popular variation. Some people are thinking he is the best captain option in game week 1, which I do think he is as well. So in that case, most of you are on this strategy where you only want to go for Salah, and in which case I have come up with this 3-5-2 formation, which I think could be a really good draft to go into game week 1 with. So keepers wise, I've gone with Henderson and Fabianski. At this point in time, most of the drafts that you will see will still have a 4.5 million keeper and then a 4.0 million bench fodder. So for all three drafts, I've gone with Henderson and Fabianski. Henderson just seems to me like the keeper, the go-to 4.5 million keeper right now, because he's first choice of Crystal Palace. Glasner has come out to kind of indicate that already, to the point that Sam Johnstone has requested to leave the club. And in terms of looking at other 4.5 million options, Flecken's fixtures don't really, scream a lot of clean sheets to me. And other options like the Chelsea keepers, like Jorgensen or Sanchez, we just don't really know who is truly the number one choice there. Same goes for the Nottingham Forest keepers as well, whether it's Matt Sells or Carlos Miguel. So I think Henderson is the safest one, and in terms of Crystal Palace's defense, they are pretty decent. So I think Henderson would be the one that I would go for, and he's the one in most of these drafts that you will see today as well. Now in defense, I've gone with three at the back here in Trent, Lewis Hall, and Vardiol. So Trent and Vardiol have been in many of my drafts recently, and I do think that if you're on a Salah only draft, you don't have too much of a budget constraint because you don't have Haaland, so you can afford to go for two premium defenders, and Trent and Vardiol, they kind of justify themselves. Trent also got an assist in yesterday's friendly against Sevilla, so looking really good back in pre-season as well, managed to get a bit of game time, so I think Trent will start the season really well. And Vardiol, same goes for him as well. In the Community Shield, he did play in that kind of a left back role, even though during that game, Rico Lewis was the one that was inverting more than Vardiol. But given that Kyle Walker should be coming back soon, you would imagine that once Kyle Walker is back in the side, Vardiol would be the one that is bombing forward a lot more, in which case we would see him in those attacking positions as well. So Vardiol, I do like him in this draft. Again, you can afford two premiums. The 4.5 that I've gone for here is Lewis Hall, because he feels to me like the one that is most likely to be starting at left back for Newcastle. There is always that threat of maybe Dan Burn potentially playing there and Eddie Howe maybe favouring Dan Burn a little bit, but I do think, like, based on the eye test and based on pre-season performances, Lewis Hall has looked really, really good. A lot of the forums, the Newcastle forums as well, they do predict that Lewis Hall would be first choice, even if, let's say, Newcastle signed Mark Guehi. It seems as if Lewis Hall should still keep that position and not lose it to Dan Burn. So, but given that that's the information right now, I do think, like, I do have enough confidence that Lewis Hall will be the 4.5 million defender that I choose here. I really like his attacking threat. So in midfield, I have Eze, Salah, Fernandes, Saka, and Nkunku. So this is a really strong midfield. And essentially, because you can go without Haaland, there's a lot more money to spread around. So Eze, Salah, Fernandes, Saka, all four of them are penalty takers. And Eze, he's been in a lot of preseason drafts already, and I think he just justifies himself at the price point he's at. 7 million on penalties, nailed for 90 minutes. Salah, you're probably going to captain him, and this is a Salah only draft. Fernandes and Saka, now both of them, so Fernandes is at 8.5 and Saka is at 10 million. Both of them are really good value. I think Fernandes at 8.5 million has the potential to really outscore the value that FPL put him on. 8.5 million could be a bit of a joke of a price tag if he keeps up the performances that we know he can. And of course, he's on penalties as well. He did actually put the ball into the goal in the Community Shield. So just a bit of a reminder to us of the quality that he possesses as a player. So I do like him if we do have the budget to go for him. And yes, without Haaland, lots of money to spread around. And then Saka, really good player to cover the Arsenal fixtures. He did play 45 minutes in the recent friendly when he came back, so I do think he will start the season running, and the atmosphere in the Arsenal team just looks really good. The vibes that they're going with right now, the confidence just looks really good. So I do think like Wolves at home, Aston Villa away, and then Brighton at home, the first three fixtures is where we will see Saka really perform. And then in Nkunku, 6.5 million, he's just the most value player right now. I think locked in many people's drafts as well. Same for this Salah only draft that I've gone for. Up front, it's Isak and Solanke. So Isak, I don't really need to discuss him too much. Pretty much a player that is kind of the first few choices when you're building a draft. For Solanke, the reason I've gone with him here is because in terms of my overall thoughts about Solanke first, I think it's a really good signing for Spurs, and I do think like moving forward, Solanke would be at the price point he's at, right, 7.5 million. He would be one of the default picks moving forward. The only concern with me is how fast he will adapt to the Spurs team. Yes, I know he's a really good player, and I do know that Spurs will create loads of chances for him, but he is a player that will need to adapt because Bournemouth's playing style and Spurs' playing style is slightly different. So not to say that he won't start the season off well. I just do think like he needs some time to adapt, and that's why I'm not super keen on starting with him. But given that there is enough budget here, and Ange Postecoglou has kind of said that it's very likely Solanke would start the game, you would imagine start game week 1 game, you would imagine that with minutes he will start to pick up form. So if you're willing to gamble on that, then Isak and Solanke as a front two pairing just makes this whole team look very, very strong on the whole. So the 7 attackers that you're fielding are all kind of elite attackers there. I really like them. And on the bench as well, you do have decent coverage there. You do have Fabianski is just the bench for the keeper at 4.0 million. But the option to kind of rotate comes with João Pedro there, who has Everton away in game week 1. But do remember that in game week 4, João Pedro does have Ipswich. So if you do want to rotate there, potentially when there are bad fixtures for any of these 7 players that you see in the attack right now, you could very well just rotate with João Pedro, who also does look like he will be quite good value moving forward into the season on penalties for Brighton, and he picked up a couple of goals and assists in preseason as well. Barco and Harold Bellis, both of them are the 4.0 million defender options that you can choose to rotate depending on whether Lewis Hall has good or bad fixtures. Right, so there we go with this team. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below if you are on a Salah only draft, and what differences do you have compared to this team, as well as your thoughts on Solanke and whether you've brought him into your teams already. I'll be keen to know down in the comments below. But let's now take a look at a Haaland only draft. If I was to go with a Haaland only draft in this case, I think this is likely what I would line up with. So again, Henderson and Fabianski are the keepers of choice, but I've gone very heavy in defense here in Trent, Porro and Vardy, and let me explain why I've done so. So up front, for João Pedro that I've gone for here, sure, you can choose to have Muniz in that position, you can choose to have Chris Wood, but in terms of maybe the next best option there, it would be Solanke. And for me to reach Solanke from João Pedro, I would have to free up a whole 2 million. So that is quite hard to reach, namely because you have Haaland here, so majority of your money has gone into him. And then when I compare other players like Muniz and Wood that I've mentioned there, I do like João Pedro in comparison to those two players as well. So I'm perfectly fine to go with the 0.5 cost saving versus the other 6 million forwards and go for João Pedro here. And thereafter it leaves me more money, and that's why I can upgrade my defensive options to someone like Porro to still cover the Spurs kind of good fixtures in the first 2 game weeks, because they have Leicester in game week 1. It's a fixture I definitely think they could do well in. Everton in game week 2 as well. So I do think like I want a bit of that Spurs attack. And to me, Porro just feels very, very involved in the attack. He's almost as if he's a midfielder, and at times he's so far forward that he's next to the attackers, he's next to the forwards. So I do like him as an option, and on the off chance that there is a clean sheet for Spurs, to me that feels like a bonus for Porro, because his main threat for me would come from assists or goals, and that's where majority of his points I imagine would come from. If he does keep a clean sheet against Leicester or against Everton, that is truly double-digit haul territory to me. So I've gone for Porro here in a way to kind of cover the Spurs attackers. But obviously he is listed as a defender here. And then Trent and Vardiol, similar to the Salah only draft, I still do think like you would be able to have both of these players and still afford a pretty balanced team overall. So I've gone for a big at the back here. It's not a very popular strategy, but definitely with plans to move some of these defenders on once their fixtures start to turn. But starting the season wise, I do think like Trent, Porro and Variel could be good value. In midfield, it's Nkunku, Saka, Gordon and Eze. So this midfield, I would say majority of the players here are quite template picks. Nkunku, Gordon and Eze are pretty much template picks. But Saka I've gone with here with the intention to cover Salah's returns. Because I do think like Saka over the first 3 game weeks can match Salah. Saka has Wolves at home in game week 1, Aston Villa away in game week 2, and Brighton at home in game week 3. So 2 plump home fixtures, which Arsenal are predicted to score very highly in, and you would imagine Saka would be involved in that. So I do think like over the first 3 game weeks, I can cover Salah by having Saka. And that's kind of why I have him here, but also that his price point at 10 million makes it slightly easier for me to jump on Salah later on, say come game week 5, when Haaland actually has Arsenal and Salah has Bournemouth, and that's the game week where majority of the people would be captaining Salah, and I might want to do that as well. Then having Saka here just enables me to move up to Salah quite easily. An extra 2.5 million can be found very easily as well if I do downgrade some options around my team. So covering the price point and also covering the Salah position there. That's why I have Saka. And then up front, it's Isak, Haaland and João Pedro. After all, this is a Haaland only draft. I would be captaining Haaland from game weeks 2 to game weeks 4. So that's why he's in the draft. And then for Isak, again, as I've mentioned, one of the first few names in everyone's drafts. For João Pedro, also spoke about him in comparison to the 6 million options. I do think like him having penalties feels to me like a little bit more value in that 5.5 million as compared to Muniz and Wood. Not to say that Muniz and Wood aren't good options. I do think like they are good options as well, but I don't think João Pedro is that far off at 5.5 million. So I've gone with him there. And Rodgers is on the bench as a bit of a rotation for me, because I can rotate Rodgers and João Pedro. They do have a decent rotation for Aston Villa and Brighton fixtures. So both of them can kind of rotate as my 7th attacker. And aside from that, there's Barco and Harold Bellis also on the bench in the event that I want to start Barco ahead of Porro when Porro does have poor fixtures. And if I do find myself in a position where I want to keep Porro instead of selling him, then those two 4.0 million options can really help me to capture better fixtures and then hold on to Porro for his good fixtures. So that's kind of the thinking behind this draft. Also a bit of balance there from the bench to provide some rotation options. So let me know what you think of the Haaland only draft. And if you are on a Haaland only draft, what differences do you have? I think it's possible. I played around with this draft, and it is possible to downgrade Vardiol to, say, for example, a 4.5 million defender, and also downgrade Porro to a 4.5 million defender. What that would do is free up 1 million from Porro and 1.5 million from Vardiol. And essentially that gives me an extra 2.5 million to upgrade João Pedro to Solanke. For those of you who do find that Solanke is someone you want in your team, then that extra money can definitely go into upgrading João Pedro to Solanke. So a couple of variations here and there that you can play around, but I think the structure of the team would look something like this: a 3-4-3 with a couple of premium defenders and then a premium midfielder in Saka there to kind of cover that position. I still do think like that 10 million bracket or that premium midfielder bracket is important so that you can hop on and off some players moving forward into the season. There's greater flexibility there. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and let's now finally take a look at a Salah plus Haaland draft. So looking at a Salah plus Haaland draft, I've made a few iterations of these drafts during pre-season, and this is where I've landed on. couple of changes here and there to accommodate Solanke, which I will speak about later on. But I think in general, majority of the players as well as the structure of the team has not changed too much. So Henderson and Fabianski again. In the back line, I have Trent, Hall, and Barco. Trent is the premium defender that I don't think I would budge on. If you want to downgrade Trent to say Vardiol or even Porro, by all means, that gives you a bit more money in the bank as well. But I do think like Trent is someone I won't budge on, whether I'm on a Salah draft, a Haaland draft, or a Salah plus Haaland draft. So Trent is still here. Lewis Hall is the 4.5 million defender again that I've chosen. This spot could very well be Mikalenko if you want. It could very well be Konza. It could be any other 4.5 million defender you want to go for. And for Barco here, I have him on the in the starting 11. He is 4.0 million playing against Everton, but not to worry, you will not be fielding him every single game week because there's Anthony Robinson on the bench. He is 4.5 million, and I only have him on the bench because he has Manchester United away. From game week 2 onwards, Fulham's fixtures are really good, and that is when you would be starting him pretty much every other week. And I do like that his attacking threat has continued to be very, very good. In pre-season, he picked up 2 assists as well, and the fixtures do look good for Fulham. So Robinson will be in the starting 11 from game week 2 onwards, but just on the bench for this Manchester United away fixture. So that's a bit of defensive rotation that you have there. In midfield, there's Nkunku, Salah, Hudson-Odoi, and Eze. So if you are on a Salah plus Haaland draft, and you still want to have players like, say for example, Isak up front, Trent in defense, you will have to pretty much be in a position where you need to start a 5.5 million midfielder every other week, because yes, there's Rodgers on the bench there if you do want to rotate, but pretty much you need to start either one of these players every other week. So Rodgers or this 5.5 million. I have gone for Hudson-Odoi. There are other 5.5 million options that you can go for in midfield, like Minte from Brighton looking pretty good as well. There's Emil Smith-Rowe from Fulham also looking in good form, 2 goals in pre-season. But having to start this 5.5 million midfielder or a 5 million midfielder in Rodgers every other week, that is something that you will need to be comfortable with if you go for a Salah and Haaland draft. That's kind of the compromise. I do feel there is still some form of rotation that you can go for with Rodgers and Robinson both on the bench giving some options there, but pretty much these are the players you need to start week in, week out. So if you're able to find a 5.5 million midfielder that you're set on, that could provide the gateway for you to have this draft of Salah plus Haaland. And then for Nkunku and Eze, spoke about them quite a bit as well. Those are players I won't budge on in a Salah plus Haaland draft, and at the price point they're at 7 million and 6.5 million, they act as pretty much good enablers for this draft as well. And then Isak and Haaland up front. Solanke is the player that I've tried to fit in, and that's why I've made a bit of changes to this draft. Again, as I've mentioned, I do like Solanke for the first few game weeks if he's able to adapt. There is a growing confidence that he will be starting in game week 1, and you would think with minutes he would kind of get returns, but again my concern still stays whether he will fit into the team immediately in terms of chemistry and you know the flow of the game, right? So I do think like Solanke could be a wait and see for some people, but I've tried to fit him in here for those of you guys who want to fit him in. The previous iteration of the draft that did not have Solanke in this position, it was Muniz at 6 million, and with that extra 1.5 million, I would have upgraded Robinson to Vardiol, and Vardiol would be starting ahead of Barco, and Barco would be on the bench. So could be quite confusing, but I hope it's clear enough. Solanke would be Muniz, and thereafter Robinson on the bench right now would be Vardiol, and I will start Vardiol ahead of Barco. So those were the previous iterations, but this is to fit Solanke in for those of you who want to fit him in. For those of you who are in a similar position to me where I kind of want to wait and see a little bit on Solanke, then you can go with the previous iteration where there is Muniz in that spot. So this is the Salah and Haaland draft that I'm on currently. At this point in time, whether I'm fixed on a Salah only draft or a Haaland only draft or a Salah plus Haaland draft, I am still quite uncertain, so I will be I have my preferences, but I will be finalizing my team on the Wednesday video, so do keep a lookout for that. On Wednesday there will be my final draft. On Thursday there will be a pre-deadline stream where I will take a look at your teams and kind of rate your teams on stream, and on Friday would be the deadline stream. So it is a Friday deadline this week, so do keep a lookout for that one. But now let's take a look at the AI rating for all these drafts. So what I've done here is I've uploaded a screenshot of all these three teams into the Fantasy Football Hub My Team Tool to take a look at the team rating. If you are keen to try it out for yourselves, it's completely free. You can use the link in the description or in the pinned comment. And if you do want to sign up for Fantasy Football Hub, they are running a 50% off discount all the way until the Game Week 1 deadline, which is coming quite soon. So do make use of that discount if you are interested. But let's take a look at this first draft that we have here, and it is the Salah only draft. Now, for now, Solanke is still listed as a Bournemouth player because in the FPL game itself, he has not been updated to a Spurs player. But I would imagine that the predictions that they have right here for Solanke, which is currently based on Bournemouth's fixtures, would not change too much. Because even though Bournemouth's fixtures are maybe marginally better than Spurs fixtures, the threat from Solanke in terms of the chances that he'll be getting in the Spurs team should kind of accommodate for it slightly, and I do think like the points will not differ too much, so we can use this as a bit of an indication. And the Salah only draft that I showed you guys at the start of the video has a 96% team rating, so that is pretty high, and we're going to compare this rating to the other drafts as well. So 96% for the Salah only draft. I'm going to switch over now to the Haaland only draft. Now this Haaland only draft here that I showed you guys is on a 95% team rating. So again, this draft has no Salah obviously. I've used Saka to kind of cover that spot here, and he's likely the captain for this week. And 95%, so you can see it's not too different as well. It's 66 predicted points for this Haaland only draft, and when I switch it back, it's 67 predicted points for the Salah only draft. So it's very, very close. As I've said at the whole of preseason, the pricing has been spot on this season because it's so difficult to capture a team that has all these players. It's going to be a season where we need to prioritize when to hop on and off players and kind of decide as well who we want to start the season with. So whether it's Haaland only or Salah only, this draft that you see just now only have a 1% team difference, 1% team rating difference. Now I want to show you guys this final draft here that we saw on the screen just before this section. It is the Haaland plus Salah draft. So again, it's on a 94% team rating by AI, and I do think like a bit of it comes down to slightly poorer rotation, because then I would be starting Barco here in some weeks. You would have to start Hudson-Odoi or Rodgers in some weeks as well. So I think the AI maybe kind of tabulates this a little bit as well, because the rating comes about over a 4 to 5 game week horizon, and they do calculate the best permutations over the next few game weeks for you guys. So I do think like because of this rotation, it does hinder a bit of the team rating. But obviously, if you do want to kind of go without Solanke here that I mentioned just now, you can very well just swap from Solanke to Muniz, and then after that upgrade Barco, upgrade Robinson on the bench to Vardiol. So by doing so, as I've mentioned just now, I would be starting Vardiol ahead of, let me just make the transfers first. I'll be starting Vardiol ahead of Barco, and thereafter you see the team rating already improves for this Haaland plus Salah draft. It improves to 96%. So even kind of putting it on par with the Salah only draft rating that we saw just now. So that's kind of why I do prefer this kind of a Salah Haaland draft variation instead of trying to fit Solanke in. I do think like there's a bit better balance in terms of the squad as well. So there we go with these three drafts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do check out Fantasy Football Hub, and I will catch you guys in the Wednesday video, which will be my final draft going into game week 1. The season has finally come. It is going to start, and FPL 24-25 season is a go. See you guys very, very soon. Bye-bye.